What's up, you guys? I'm finally getting my podcast started. Not just the promo, I'm actually shooting an episode as we're doing right now. So, as you can see from the decor, we're talking about basketball. So, basically, what I want to do in this podcast for anyone who doesn't know me is just sort of talk about basketball since it is one of my biggest passions and I do know an extreme amount about it. So, I thought if I have that knowledge and I can make it interesting, it is interesting. So, I want to share it with other people who might want to hear these thoughts and also share that same interest and passion about basketball, especially the NBA. Um, but yeah, basically, we're just going to get into it and talk about the NBA in these episodes. That just that's kind of the plan. And when we do that, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the topics and ideas I have in the comments or whatever. I do sound like a YouTuber now. Oh my god. and but yeah, without further ado, oh yeah, first of all, my name is Emil. I don't know, Emil Doctor. Um, I'm 16. I actually just got my driver's permit today, so let's go. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So, first of all, now that we have the introduction behind us, I wanted to talk about not my favorite teams, but the best teams in the NBA, right? So, in my opinion, the number one spot is shared between two teams. And those two teams are both in the West, the Lakers and the Warriors. I think that even though the Warriors might have not made the playoffs, they just have so much potential. They are the youngest team by average age, and from going to, and obviously let's not forget that they have Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, and Klay Thompson, and the second overall pick. But we're just sort of forgetting that they went from being a horrible team in the beginning when Steph got injured to at the end being not a good team, but they weren't getting blown out. In the beginning, they were getting blown out by 30, 20 each game. At the end, they were getting blown up by not even blown out, right? They were beaten by 5 points. So that's without Steph, without their two best players in Steph and Klay Thompson, and possibly another top player for them coming through this draft or a trade, however they use it. And by the way, this is without thinking about free agency. But yeah, I think that just shows how much chemistry this team is going to have next year and how good they can be and probably will be. Steve Kerr has said that they're not going to change much just because why would they? It's worked for them before, and I believe that that's going to continue for them to work. Now the Lakers, they just won. Obviously, congrats to them in a legendary and historic season. Nothing to just forget about. It was a difficult season for everyone, and I mean they're just gonna get so much. Not I wouldn't even say better, but Anthony Davis okay? I thought I saw a murder hornet. That was big as hell. Um, but so basically, the Lakers, they have so much potential, right? They have Anthony Davis, who's in my opinion still not in his peak of his prime. Well, LeBron, you can always argue, oh yeah, he's old. Well, we haven't seen that. Honestly, it's just come on. He's been the same for the last couple of years, if not gotten better. And it's just been insane to watch. And yeah, I think the Lakers just have, and we were forgetting that Avery Bradley didn't even play in these playoffs. Danny Green, I mean, he played superb defense. I think that's what everyone's forgetting about. There's so many memes and jokes about him. That he's like the worst player and he should be the MVP for the Heat, right? I mean, it's funny because he did shoot pretty bad, very bad. But I think that his defense is just so good. But Avery Bradley would have just obviously been the better option for the Lakers in the playoffs and in the finals and overall the bubble. And I think without Avery Bradley, they were still a good team, but they weren't as good, obviously. And overall, with all those players that they didn't have playing, they just weren't their full potential. So that's why I have those two teams at my top two spots. And I couldn't really make my mind up because it's honestly, for me, it's pretty unclear about how good they're going to be. All right. So yeah, that's that. And then for my third option, I honestly have the Nets. I know it's a not dangerous pick. It's just a very a pick without much evidence, right? But I think if Kevin Durant is the player he was before, he's probably not going to be. But if he is somewhat that player, I mean, him and Kyrie and the Nets, the Nets have one of the best benches in the NBA. They have one of the deepest teams. They beat the goddamn Bucks without Kyrie, without their 9 best players, basically. And I think that says enough about them. That's why they will be one of the 3 best teams, in my opinion. Probably the 3rd best team. But Kyrie Irving, that's going to be their only issue, in my opinion. I think that the Nets, that's going to be their problem, why they're not going to be the best team, is because of Kyrie Irving and his locker room issues. I know Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are friends, but we've seen Kyrie Irving to ruin teams like 2-3 times, right? And let's not forget Kevin Durant. He doesn't have the thickest skin out of NBA players, right? He gets hurt, Twitter burner accounts, whatever, right? So, yeah, we'll see how the Nets do. But I think that's just a very deep team, they've been together a long time for most of them. And they even have DeAndre Jordan. I forgot about that. I know he's not that good, but he was an all-star at one point. And I think, they have many options. And then next, I know they kind of choked, the Clippers. They can somehow keep this team together. They probably will. But they need to keep Montrezl Harrell in free agency. But right now, they are still a very, very good team. And maybe it was Doc Rivers' fault that they didn't go further. I doubt it. But the Clippers have a very deep team. They have a like the Nets. But they have, in my opinion, they have less. They're a bigger group of people who are new. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are both players who before were usually the clear star player on their team. In OKC, that wasn't the case, but Paul George didn't stay there for too long. But back in Indiana, that was his case, and that's where he was at his best, right? But yeah, I think the Clippers just still have so many good players and they need time, and that's why I put them at 4. And at 5, the best team in the East, except for the Nets, it's the Heat. Now, people might say it was a one-time run, but I think Jimmy Butler showed all of us that he's not just a star, he's a superstar. He's proven that he's one of the best players in the NBA with the incredible finals run we saw. I know we saw TJ Leaf play for like 3 games and people are like, oh my God, he's amazing. No, the finals is different for me. There's so much intensity, and he played extremely well the entire playoffs, right? So that's just the Heat. Again, they have many good options. Andre Iguodala, Kelly Olynyk, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler. The list goes on about good players they have. Chris Nunn. It goes on and on. I think the Heat are just, with that experience they just had now, I think they're the sort of team that has the thirst and they have so much energy. They really want this next title run for themselves, because they know that Goran Dragic and Jimmy Butler, they're sort of at the end of their primes. I think Jimmy Butler's around 30, 31, so it's not the end of his prime, but he's starting to become a bit older, right? And so yeah, that's my number 5 team for me, and I'm gonna go to the 10th best one. So for 6, it's the Boston Celtics for me. Just they're all young. Basically all of them are young. And they're gonna get better each year if they keep it together. Gordon Hayward might leave, but he's been injured so much. I don't really think that he's affected much of the outcome for the Celtics. He's a great player, or especially used to be on the Jazz. But yeah, he's a great player, but he hasn't affected it, changed the outcome for the Celtics too much. So I think it's more of a question how Tatum and Brown develop. And yeah, and who knows, maybe Taco Fall. But number 7 is the Raptors, because again, each year they're good. They're the Spurs of the East. I'm going to keep saying that because it's true. The Raptors have been good. They have been in the playoffs for so long. I mean, their entire team they've grown closer together through the past title run, and when they did win against the Warriors, and I think that just showed. And then Kawhi left, and everyone's like, they have no chance, and they made it to the second round and fought in Game 7 and against the Celtics. That's why I put the Celtics above them. But yeah, they're not all too young except for Spicy P, Pascal Siakam, who I think if he develops and gets bigger in clutch moments, where he is the first option, which he was supposed to be, but he kind of disappeared. If he can develop a strength and feel for the playoffs and big moments, I think the Raptors have an extremely bright future. Kyle Lowry's getting old, but hey, yeah. So they don't have too much time, but next year for sure they still have a chance. And then the team that's sort of been a disappointment, the goddamn Milwaukee Bucks. What are they doing? I know they're in my top 10, but that's because last year I would have put them at top in the 4 or the 3, right? But yeah, that's why they're at the 8 for me. And the reason they're not out of the 8 is basically one reason: Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is a top 3 player in the league, and he's 25, 26. He's going to be even better next year. He's going to keep working, and he's going to be better. He just became a father, so for many people think that might be some motivation. For many players, that has been motivation. It's kind of weird how you see players become better when they do have a child. Just sort of, yeah. But that's sort of a random one. But I think Giannis, he's young. He'll get better. If that man develops a goddamn 3-point shot, it's not even a question who's the best player in the league. Yeah. And then at 9, we have the Mavericks. We love the Mavericks. Who hates the Mavericks? And who hates Luka? Probably some Knicks fans for Porzingis leaving. But yeah, the Mavericks, they're a young team with both of their 2-star players, especially Luka. Luka's 21. He turned 21. But yeah, Porzingis also 26, I believe. Or 26, I think. But yeah, both of them, they're under 30. They're before their prime. Luka's well before his prime. Can you imagine that? Luka Doncic, who's been seen as a top 5 player by some people, is a good 5 years before his prime, if he doesn't face major injuries. And I think that just shows it, how good the Mavericks will be, and that's why they're number 9. They're not good enough yet for me, and Porzingis, he gets so many injuries. It's frustrating. Sort of the big man of a Derrick Rose, not a comparison, just for injuries. But yeah, that's for me the Mavericks at number 9. They need to develop. They need to get a defender if they're one of the worst defensive teams. But yeah, so yeah. And lastly, we have the Denver Nuggets. I know they went on an incredible run, but I think that the other teams just have shown more. But the Nuggets are still in the top 10 just because of what they just delivered, and they will be better. Jokic and Jamal Murray are both young. They're both young, and they have so much left to prove. They have that thirst of a young player. They have the energy of these young players. And I think with that team, the Nuggets will go all the way to the finals at some point. So yeah, that's the top 10 for me. And if I left someone's team out and y'all mad, leave a comment. I would love to see y'all's top 10 lists just because I want to argue. I love arguing about basketball. So let's do this. Let me know what your top 10 is, right? And then lastly, what I'm going to talk about in today's episode is the how the 2021 season is going to look, possibly. What I'm thinking about. If you have ideas about that, let me know in the comments. And so for what I can see happening is I wouldn't like it, but since some like states like California or I think it was Alameda or San Francisco county for the Warriors, this would be so many places in California are starting to allow sports teams to have fans again. I wouldn't want to see the teams traveling because there'd be almost a guarantee of someone getting coronavirus. And the bubble has worked so well, but it's going to be tough for teams to be okay with that for so long, for an entire season. So I think what Adam Silver is going to do, he said he wants teams to have fans again, right? But now that some states or counties are allowing their teams to have 20% or whatever of their fans in their arenas, I think I could see Adam Silver deciding on a not bubble. The players just going around to the different facilities, arenas and centers or whatever, and watch them play like they used to with a couple fans in attendance. And there will be COVID cases. There will be. I don't think that's an exclusion there. If you're not in a bubble, there's going to be cases. And especially when you're playing a high contact sport like basketball and have thousands of people involved in the overall process, right? And especially in some states, they have kids, the players have kids, the staff has kids, they go to school. School has cases. Let's not pretend like it doesn't. And so they're going to get kids. It's just so much danger, in my opinion. And I would hate to see more players get this virus, and just sort of, it would kind of ruin the reputation the NBA has just gained throughout the world. I think many countries, it sort of brought much representation to the NBA and reputation that they're a good league. They're really well organized. You saw that with them having 0 cases over however long the bubble was. It was what, like 2 months, 3 months of a bubble? Sorry. So I think that if they can somehow remain somewhat of a bubble and keep the cases down, that would be my ideal season. Because as the NBA, I wouldn't want to lose the reputation I just gained from different countries for being very careful and efficient about this whole thing. Like the NFL, the MLB, and the NHL, they've all had cases. Some teams had to forfeit their season, right? Europe's done it pretty well with all their soccer teams. There's been cases, but it's not been too many. You have the Champions League back at it since yesterday. So I think around the world, the NBA is the league that has handled this situation the best. And I don't think there's arguing it. With 0 cases, you can't really argue it, right? Well, every other sports league that has continued has seen cases. Every major sport league. So major props to Adam Silver and the crew from the NBA. They just handled it superbly. And that's a question how they're going to do it for the next season, right? And we don't even know when it is, when it's starting, if it's in January, end of December, February, maybe even March. I don't want to get political, but I think it could depend on the election, just because there is, with the whole mask situation and everything, that could turn the cases down. We'll see. Maybe whoever wins the election, maybe we're lucky, and whoever just makes the right decisions, and we end up like some of the teams, some of the countries in Europe, where the cases go down for months and months, and then we can see fans to 50% capacity in the arenas. Not pushing that. I really think we should take it carefully and seriously, and be careful about the whole thing, and just not push fans back in the arenas too quickly, because you're gonna have a burst of cases very fast, and they're gonna be a high amount of cases. So it's gonna be a very dangerous and cautious decision making for the NBA for the resume of the next season. And I honestly cannot wait to see this next season. In my opinion, possibly going to be the greatest season of my lifetime that I've experienced. To be fair, I've only been watching the NBA since 2015, since that's kind of when I found out about it, 2014. But yeah, so maybe not too much data to go off from. But yeah, overall, you have so many good teams. It is absolutely insane. They're fairly distributed, and it's so much potential, so many good young players. We haven't even seen Zion play too much, and I don't know, but who knows? Maybe he will live up to the hype, and if he does, that would be insane. You have Ja Morant, you have Luka Doncic, you have even Trae Young, who, in my opinion, is kind of overrated because he doesn't play defense. He doesn't play defense. He shoots like 35% from 30 feet, not from 30 feet. While Steph Curry and Damian Lillard, they shoot like 40% from there. Maybe that's only Steph. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's so many good young players. R.J. Barrett, even. We've sort of forgotten about him because he's on the Knicks. But I'm so excited to watch the next season, and I'm going to be here the entire time, and we're going to talk about it each week, maybe even more often. We'll see how much time I will have, and how much y'all want these, right? So thanks for tuning in, and let me know what y'all liked, what y'all didn't like, what y'all want me to improve. The background will be better soon. There's nothing really right now. There's only, that's a foreground, whatever. But I will add some background, and if you do have suggestions for the background, let me know. I might get it if it's a good one. So yeah, this is just the beginning of this all. So I'll see y'all next week then.